for Brunch TV, a show where women are pouring into each other and then their glasses. I'm your host, Stephanie, and I'm so excited to have these beautiful ladies here today to talk about sex. Are you guys excited?
Yes.
Oh, yes, yes. So, okay, we're gonna get right into it. What's your favorite position? I'm just joking. She was like, oh no, I'm gonna need more champagne for that. But honestly, women, we talk about sex all the time and it almost kind of seems like it's so taboo, but I wanna have this conversation today. And the first question I have is, when was sex first introduced to you? Like, what was your first memory of sex? Not like the act, but actually like, oh, okay, that's sex.
I know my first introduction to my mom. It's more like, you don't have sex. Don't have sex. If you do have sex, you stupid. And that, it wasn't let me tell you what sex is, or even how it related to my body. So it's like my first introduction to it is don't do it. That's just what you're taught. Like, just don't do it. And it's like, okay, it's not gonna work out.
Yeah.
My first introduction was watching girls get pregnant in high school.
Ooh.
And having to go ask my mom, like, so what was that? And she was like, yeah, they had sex and that's what they did and that's what happens when you have sex. So you want a baby? That's what you do.
Wow, I didn't think of it like that.
And I was like, well, I'm 12 and 13, but cool. If that's how we're going to talk about this. So it was kind of abrupt.
Yeah.
So
mine was, I don't know if we ever actually had a discussion on sexuality or sex even. I think my earliest experience with it was I got in trouble in kindergarten for masturbating during class and nap time.
Oh,
wow. So that was my intro to it, I guess. It kept happening and I kept getting to the principal's office, and I was going to school in Arkansas and a very conservative family, and my mom was just like, this is terrible. And it became a very different conversation, not about sex or pleasure, but about shame and what you should not do and how this is a sin and this is dirty and all of that. So that was my first, I guess, experience with sex.
I mean, and that you bring up a good point about the shame and so what were some of the societal norms about sex growing up? Because I know when I grew up, my parents didn't really talk to me about sex. You see the little fuzzy channels, remember Real Sex on HBO and the taxi cab confessions. You're like, what is this? But you don't, nobody talks about it. So what were some of those societal norms and where you grew up? I know you grew up Arkansas, but y'all were in a different area.
I was in Philly, so there was a condom store on South Street.
Oh yeah.
So we knew
the Condom Emporium.
Yeah, it's Condom Emporium on South Street. So I'm walking right next to my mom buying shoes, and I'm walking right next to a sex store at 9 years old.
Yeah.
So sex was in our faces. It was there. The porn channels were on our TVs, so we saw it. It was normal. It was. The prostitutes walked up and down the street. It was. We had to talk about it, so we had to see it. It wasn't anything that was hidden. We didn't see the shame.
Yeah.
Well, I know, for me, I was a teen mom, so even before then, I just remember as a child going to cousin's house and friend's house, and it's like you're being sexual, but you don't even know what sex is. You just know when you touch certain areas, it tickles. Yeah. And so you're learning that, but then you're not able to talk about it. Yeah. So then you go home and it's like, you don't even know that your brothers and sisters might be experiencing the same thing. You just know, okay, this is what happened, but it's kind of like it's just normal. You just don't talk about it. You just go on with you're a kid, so you really don't really talk about it. Nobody ever talks to you about it, so it's just like you do that until you get old enough to actually have intercourse, and then you go to something different.
Yeah, we never had, for us, when it comes to sexuality in our household, it was very, just riddled in shame. And that was, looking back, it's very unfortunate, but we didn't have any discussions with our family on it. My mom never sat me down and talked about it. I learned from my neighbors, I learned from, the other kids just hanging, one of my neighbors, she would steal her dad's magazines, and then we'd look at him and it's like, oh, what is this? Wow. So yeah, that was it was just not discussed. It was something that we just do not talk about. And it was very explicitly explained, we're not going to have this discussion, don't ask me about it.
So now you were first introduced like as a kid or as a young adult, and then you grow. How do you think like your perception of sex versus intimacy has changed? Like when did you learn the difference between those two? Because I don't think I learned that until I was older.
No.
I was like, oh, like because sometimes, let's be honest, like when you're younger, sex is trash.
Yes.
But then you're like intimate with people, like, oh, like I actually feel like your soul. Okay, like this is different. So I mean, when did you like realize that difference between like the sex and intimacy? You like yesterday.
A year ago.
About 10 years ago. Probably like in my 30s to where I actually connected it because I had to connect with myself. You know, once I connected with myself, then I understood like, wait a minute, I don't need to be giving this. Even though it wasn't like I was just giving it out freely, but I didn't really feel like if I like you, I didn't feel like it was a big deal. But now I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. This is gold over here. Let me slow my pace. You know, and try to figure out what was it in me that felt like I did. Because most of the time I didn't even feel like I needed to have sex. It was just something I did if I liked the person, you know. But I'm like, it wasn't giving me nothing. So it's kind of like I had to learn who I was, and then it's like, okay, this is who I am. So sex is a part of me, but that's the smallest part.
Right.
And so when you get to that intimacy part, it's about learning who you are intimately, so you can attract, you know, that kind of energy or that type of person that's going to give you more than that sex, or to look at you as sexual, you know, a sexual object.
Yeah,
Because that's mostly what it is. They look at you.
Right.
Yes.
You ever look back and you're like, man, I should not have.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was like, you got a one up. J friends.
Exactly. What about?
I think my experience was a little bit different. Because I didn't really enjoy sex when I was younger, because as I grew up I realized I preferred women.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, now I know why I didn't like sex when I was younger. Because I was with men. I didn't like men. Like I was doing it because that's what society was like. Hey, you should, you know, they're supposed to be with a man. That's what you're supposed to be doing.
So did you not like the actual action, or was it like you weren't connecting with men?
I wasn't connecting with men. Like they were my friends. And I thought that that's what that was. I was like, okay, this is friendship, so now I'm supposed to be in a relationship with you, and now we're supposed to have sex. This is how this is supposed to work. But then the connection wasn't there. So I never really enjoyed it. And I was like, I am not enjoying this. Yeah. And then my first time with a woman, and I was like, I'm enjoying this. This is what I'm enjoying. This is intimacy. This feels real. This is my soul connecting with someone. So
when you had your first experience with a woman, like, did you seek that out, or was it kind of just happened? Like, you know how a guy hit on you, you're like, oh, okay, this cool kind of natural transition.
It felt like a little kid crush. Like she approached me, but it was like she had her head down and she was kind of like, I don't even know if you like women, but I kind of want to take you out. And I was like, speak up, look up. Are you looking at me? Are you talking to me? And we hit it off, and it just kind of happened. And I was like, all right, I can try this. And then it was like from there on out, I was like, oh yeah, this is where I'm at. It clicked, and I was like, okay, this is what I've been missing. I've been missing this emotional connection, and now this feels great. This is where I should be.
Wow. Okay, I'm gonna come back to that because you have kids too, so I want to talk about that.
Yeah, we'll do that. I'm here.
Your like difference between sex and the intimacy portion.
I think for me, like I will be honest, I've only had 3 sexual partners in my life. Like my ex-husband, my partner, and then like
a random.
a threesome at a swingers club.
Oh, okay, let's take it in.
But with that, like for me, in the beginning when I was with my ex, I met him when I was 13 years old, and we had sex early on. I wish I hadn't, but the intimacy and sex were very distinctly different for me, because I was able to separate the two. And I think that was from my own just like personal work. And I've always been fascinated with sex from an early age. So for me, I was able to like distinguish between the two. But I really don't think I ever felt true intimacy until I met my partner. And so that's been really cool, just having such a strong, intimate connection without even needing the physical side, but then also having the physical side, and then having the combination of the two. It's
mine.
Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think you all have made such valid points, and because you talk to your girlfriends, and I feel like there's so many women who just don't enjoy sex, like how you just mentioned something, but it's like it's almost like we get shamed for talking about it, but then men want us to be freaks and do all this stuff, but then how you supposed to talk about it? Now you're a hoe. So how do you kind of like explain or talk to your kids about like your experiences, or do you talk to them about it, or how do you introduce your kids? Like I feel like we're in a whole different generation now. Like all of us have kids.
Yeah.
Well, I have boys, so
It's a little bit different.
it's a little bit different. And then they don't like to listen to me, but I'm also a mom that's like outside the box. So I'm the type to go get a moldy cucumber and show them how to cook. And this is what happened when you get, it's like I'm trying to explain it to them how the only way I know how, but I don't shame them for anything. And I try to let them know that it's not necessarily you need a girlfriend. I raised them to just be like, get to know yourself first, and then that way you can figure out who you really like. Because you're going to have so many people to pick from. And just because somebody picks you doesn't necessarily mean that's a good match, because a lot of people pick you and you don't want to pick you. So you have to be aware of that. And I know with boys, sometimes it is, even when I was younger, it is more the girls will be the aggressors, but that's because we're not taught about it. It's kind of like you're taught, like that's how you attract a boy. So of course that's how they're going to go at a boy, because that's what they're told they have to offer. You know? So with the boys, it's just a little different. So it's a little hard, but I just try to be as open as I can with them.
And see, I have girls. My youngest girl, she's 3, so she doesn't. She's not even. She doesn't care. She's like, ew, boys, he stinks. And then my oldest girl is 11, so she's getting to that age where she's like, yeah, mom, so this boy, he's got hair. I'm like, hair where? She's like, oh, he pulled up his shirt. Ew. So it's one of those things. I'm very straightforward with her because my parents were straightforward with me. And I think it does happen because they were honest with me and they were forthcoming and we talked about everything. I feel comfortable talking to her about everything. So I do talk to her and we have open conversations. We have a notebook that we use for things that she doesn't want to say out loud.
Oh, that's awesome.
She writes in a notebook and she'll slide under my door. And she's like, hey, I got a question. It's in the notebook. And so I open the notebook, I read the question, I take my time answering it, and I slide the notebook under her door. And then so whenever she's ready to have the conversation, she'll come to me and we'll have the conversation.
I'm stealing that idea. Yeah, that's amazing.
It works for us. She has a virgin mimosa, I have regular mimosas, and we go outside the back porch and we talk. So that's how we have like our open conversations.
I love that.
So ours is pretty open. We have a blended family. So I have my son and my fiance has 2 children. So the oldest is 14 and we have she's like, can we not talk about this, please? It's embarrassing. But I definitely made her put a condom on a banana and I talked to her about, like, just so you know, because I don't ever want her to be in a situation where she has a pregnancy scare.
Right.
Or she feels, the biggest focus for us when it comes to talks on sexuality, I try and express to her, own your pleasure, own your pleasure and own your body, own yourself.
Right.
Do not invite people into that if they don't deserve it.
Right.
And it's really like teaching a level of your self-respect and self-care and self-love. And so that way when she does find a partner that she does want to sleep with and she feels like she's had a really, I want her to do so fully confident and understanding like she's making this decision. It's not something that she feels like she needs to do to make someone else happy or anything like that. Like she's choosing that. So yeah, I'm like, we have our sex series that we do at home with her. So, I do at home with her. I'm like, this is our.
Dad's like, yeah, you got it.
Yeah, he's completely handed it off to me. He's like, please, I don't want to talk about this with her. You can do that, and so I have been, and yeah, we had like one day it was like, next time we're gonna talk about masturbation. And she's like, I don't want to.
I don't want to do it.
I tell her it's up to you, but I'm just giving you these tools because one day you're gonna do all of these things, and I want you to know. And I think the biggest thing I stress with her is just really owning your pleasure, especially as a woman, because like trying to depend on a man to do that. No offense to them, but we know our bodies.
That's why you were saying how many some women are unhappy is because they don't.
They don't, and they don't take the time to learn it.
Yes. Not communicating with him.
Right.
You know, some people don't even have the conversation of, do you like this?
Yeah.
What do you like?
You're just like laid over, bent over, like I don't like this, but you're faster.
This
But
isn't happy.
a lot of people don't even know what they like because they've never explored their own sexuality with themselves. And if you're disconnected from yourself, there's no way you can connect with your partner.
Right.
That's real, and I think that pleasure piece is key because I feel like when we have conversations about sex or when it's out in public, like media wise, it's like it's almost like women are just objects to have sex with and not to be able to enjoy sex. It's like men it's almost like men always get the pleasure and women are stuck with like, all right, well, this is great. Yeah, but that pleasure piece is really important. So with like when you're having sex or doing whatever you're doing intimately, like are you yourself or do you have like a whole alter ego that you just bring out like, all right, about to bust it with winter snow.
I got one. Her name is Winter Snow. She come out when it's cold. She just comes.
So only in the wintertime.
But then, you know, you don't know which part of her is gonna come out. You know, then you got to, you know, depends if she had some wine or she had
tequila. Wine hit different.
The tequila hit the brown. You know, so you know which one to pull out. So yeah, she drank. What she wants today?
Because wine sex and tequila sex are two different experiences.
Right.
Listen, me and Champagne have two different alcohol tastes. Okay, like her name is Champagne. Okay, we have two different alcohol tastes. Okay. I think Champagne is a stripper. I'm not really sure who she is. Okay, but I think she drinks Tennessee straight. I don't know where she's from, but she thinks she drinks Tennessee straight. I think she drinks Tennessee straight. But yeah, she definitely comes out on her own. I'm like, oh.
Do you get up the next day?
Yeah, I'm like, my back hurts. What happened? Am I some cat before? Okay. But yeah, she's there.
Nice. I don't think I have an alter ego, but I also think I'm just like a naturally very sexual person. And so I think that my sexuality is such a big part of me, and so it's sort of just like fluid.
Yeah.
And wait, you're studying to be a sex therapist, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so what
Tell
us like what does that like mean? What does that entail?
So I'm going to school for sex coaching. It's a little bit different than therapy because therapy tends to look at past experiences and things like trauma and how that's related to your sexuality. It's more of a deep dive into like your psyche. Sex coaching is more focused on solutions. So say you're having an issue with this and like I want to solve this specific problem, you'd go to a coach. Sort of like a personal trainer, but for your sex life.
Oh,
okay, nice.
Yeah.
But that's okay. You know this.
Takes number
That's
there.
awesome though. Like
to even think about that, but
who even knew that was a career?
Yeah. Well, when I was
like
a teenager, I told my mom like I'm gonna be a sex therapist, and she lost her mind. She was like, "What?" But I was like, "For real? Yes, I'm going to." And then I ended up getting sidetracked with my business in college, and so we went this route, but we're reconnecting again, and it's really cool to be able to, because this,
it's all gonna come together.
And this too
awesome.
is so in line with what I plan on doing anyway. So it's like a perfect mix.
Right.
Yes.
Sexual healing.
Yes.
It really is sexual healing.
It's so healing for a woman to own her sexuality, and I think that's the biggest thing. When you have a culture that tells you how you should be and how you should dress and how you, like what is expected of you as a woman, to be able to take that and say, no, this is what
I want to be.
I'm defining for myself, and I'm owning this, and this is mine. That is powerful.
Absolutely.
I think now too, like after I have a daughter now, she's not even 2 yet, but I think you just feel so much more empowered to like be this, not like a sexual figure, but you want to feel sexual and you want to feel like, yo, I just birthed this like badass kid, and I'm so like you're more in tune with yourself now. And so like as you get older, like with the ages, do you feel like sex is different now that you've gotten older and after children?
I think people almost expect you to shrivel up and become like this old withered woman after you have a child, and I'm like, but I feel like I'm about to burst. Like I feel like I'm about to be like the cougar of all cougars now. So I feel more sexually empowered now after having a child. I'm like, I just did twice. Like I feel like it's now I should be able to explore more of my sexuality. So
I mean, I just like the fact that I've gotten older to even understand, you know, the importance of the sexual health to yourself. Because it's really, like for me, I'm more of an energy. Like it doesn't even have to be a male or woman. Like I could just feel energy and I'll be attracted to you, but it's kind of like learning yourself and knowing what you like. That's the part that's, people really don't know that, because like you said, you're just there for the other person, and even things being told of how to orgasm and what it should look like. How can somebody tell you how that looks like?
Yeah.
It's little things like that once you learn yourself, you kind of release those things, and then like you said, you walk around fluid all day just being who you are, because that's not who you are.
Right.
There's so many other things that's just a big part of it.
Yeah, you don't put your sex in a container and you're like, I'll take this out when it's time. Yeah, it's like really just, it's part of me. It's a part of you. Like it's a part of all of us, and it's something we naturally have.
I think so many women do that. It's almost like, all right, well, we'll take this out on Tuesday,
Yes.
and then after we did it, we'll put
Thursday.
it back up. And it's like, what do you think holds women back from just being like this, like sexual freely person?
Life. Like, honestly, like you mentioned schedule, I schedule sex, and I hate that we have to do it, but we are
Does it
extremely
take away
busy.
from like the moment? Because I feel like I want to do that, but I'm like, doesn't it get weird?
Well, for me, it's making it a priority, because it's either we put it on the calendar and we're making sure it's a priority, it's happening, we know it's happening, or it'll happen when it happens. But we have 3 kids and they're very busy, and I run a business and he works full time. Like, it's very hard. So for us, like, I mean, definitely spontaneity is huge.
Right,
we take a lot of trips together. Like right now we have a month without our kids, and it has been amazing. But making it for us, when I moved in with my partner, I realized like our schedules don't match at all. So we had to put it on the calendar. So it was actually like, this is getting done. For me, it's a non-negotiable. Like, this is what I need. And we're gonna have to make time for it. We're gonna have to figure it out. We're gonna have to get a sitter if we need one, or we're gonna have to schedule like time out of the house. It's making it a priority.
Yeah.
And it makes sense because you are tired, because I know even with you working and kids, it's kind of like you have to be considerate of this person just got off, like, oh, I'm gonna get a quickie, but it's kind of like they might not want to get
Right.
sorry,
You want to put some energy
Right.
into
Yeah.
it. Like,
have it, you know.
You don't want it to be whack.
Right. That was done, right?
He was tired, that's why I didn't want to do it.
That's why I didn't try.
You know, so.
I didn't try that time.
Yeah.
But it's just communication, like you said.
Yeah.
You know, you just come up with what works for you.
Yeah.
It ain't gonna pop up sometimes.
Yeah. And then it's the last question I have for you ladies. How do you think the media has shaped how women like view sex and perform sex?
I feel like the media puts a lot of expectations on us of what they expect us to be able to do, but we also will not ever talk to girls about how to like anything about their bodies or their sexuality. So it's like, as soon as you hit this age where you're supposed to start having sex, you're supposed to know what you're supposed to do. And it's like, who taught me this? Like, how am I supposed to do this? And I think oftentimes like the media tells us we're supposed to be these hypersexual creatures, but we're also shamed for being that hypersexual creature.
Yeah.
So yes.
I think it used to be like natural women were beautiful. You know, there was the Aaliyahs and the left eyes, things like that, and then it's transformed into, well, now you need to have a fake body to be considered beautiful, but then you're shamed for having that fake body and being considered beautiful.
Yep.
So what do you want from us? We don't even know what you want from us now. So we don't know how to be sexual. We don't know what kind of sexuality you want. So a lot of them are just confused.
Yeah.
And so they don't do anything.
That's real.
Yeah, social media. It's just like with everything, you know, they feed you what they want you to have. That's why it's so important, like you said, to have women that you can have these conversations with, because the conversations I have one-on-one with people, I've never had in groups of women, you know, so it's kind of like you have to build that circle around you to where you can express yourself, so you're not getting distracted by social media, because of course they want you to go spend money on this, they want you to look this way, and you know in your reality that's not real.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you got to bring yourself, like, you know that's not right. So, you know, you got to be real with yourself, and I think that's a big part of, you know, women just stepping up and being accountable for themselves. You know, and then speaking to other, especially young girls, like, we know that's not real.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's important for us as women who are real women who have everyday lives and everything to have these discussions, because it shows we're not just seeing sexuality on a TV screen where it's been edited and filtered. Like, we're seeing raw conversations about it, and these are so important because sexuality is a massive spectrum, and you can't have everything fit in one little box, and you can't tell someone how to do it and how to act a certain way. Be able to have these discussions and open it, and so that way other people can connect. Like, know that they're not alone in their struggles with their sexuality too.
And I did want to say, I know, Maisha, you have a very special story because you have an organization that kind of came out of a situation. If you want to share.
Yeah, so I have a nonprofit, Blue Girls Turn Go, and it came to me after a situation where I was terminated from a position from being sexually harassed, but I was raped when I was in the military, and that kind of made me get this idea like there's so many people that are, we say a little blue, but it's like you don't know who you are, you know, and then you're trying to grow, but it's like you don't even know how to grow. Like you get, like you said, you get social media, you get people coming to you, and nobody's really coming to you genuinely because they don't even know. So it's kind of like Blue Girl Turned Gold. It's kind of like going from unknowing to knowing, you know, knowing how great you are. But that's so many different steps. There's transformations, you know, like I said, creating your circle and literally getting back to who you are.
Yeah.
And I think just having the organization has created a conversation where people can be comfortable being who they are, because there is no wrong way to do this life. You just have to live it, but you have to be aware that all things exist.
Absolutely.
Right.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
That's a great transition into our final thought is we're going to do, y'all know I love like my positive affirmations and word of encouragement. So everyone has a affirmation card. So if you can take your card and we're going to read it. We're going to leave the people with a beautiful affirmation for the evening. All right, Lizandra, you go first.
This is
love it.
perfect.
I love it.
My mental health is just as important as my physical health. This has been like my theme of the week. This is perfect.
So good.
I love it.
Right. I am allowed to take up space. Yes.
Yes.
I nourish my mind with healthy thoughts about my body.
Wow, that's not perfect. Mine says, I surround myself with people who care about my well-being. Oh, I mean, yay! Thank you, ladies, so much for having this open and honest conversation, and cheers to more like good sex. Cheers! Yes. Thank you. Thank you all for watching. Make sure you follow us on social media at Before Brunch TV. We'll see you next time.